Good evening, everybody. My name is Arjun, and I'm the founder of Pivot. Very happy to be doing this session today on how to land top AI/ML and data roles at tier one companies in 2026, which has been a very eventful year from a job market perspective. We have two speakers with us. Both of them are working at very well respected companies in their specific industry and have a wealth of experience across data and AI/ML roles. They're just backstage right now. I'll be bringing them up here with me, and then we'll get started right away. All right. Um, Hi, Shrikant. Hi, Anupriya. I hope you both can still hear me.
Yes, very well.
Great. Well, welcome once again, and thank you so much for making time for this on a Thursday evening. I think this topic that we have here for our community is something that we have received as a popular demand. There's just so much happening in AI/ML and data space right now, and there's a lot of noise as well with regard to what companies are actually looking for, because it's a nascent industry, right? It's a nascent role. So we thought it'd be good to do this session and sort of settle it once and for all. Kind of understand where companies are actually putting their chips in terms of talent decisions. So would love to get your thoughts on that. But before we dive in, I think it'd be helpful to just quickly do a round of intros. So I'll go first. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Arjun. I'm the founder at Pivot, and we help mid career professionals make ambitious transitions. And these could be very unique transitions as well, or more linear and straightforward ones too. We'll talk more about Pivot and what we do during the course of the discussion, but I'll just turn it over to Anupriya first. Anupriya, welcome once again. And if you could just share a little bit about your journey and what you do today at Zomato, that would be great.
Great. Thanks a lot, Arjun. Very excited to be here today. So I started off my journey with investment banking with Citi in India. Early on, I think that I would say it was my baptism by fire as a 20-year-old working uh, in like right in the middle of everything. I think the soft skills that I picked up then, regardless of the industry I worked in, regardless of the sector I worked in, be it like the pre-AI age or the current AI age, I think those skills were what have remained constant for me throughout. Thereupon, I transitioned into renewable energy sector and edtech, and now with Zomato, I am leading their AI product suite. So within Zomato, we have a lot of AI products that we lease out to different clients, which is B2B vertical within the Eternal Ambit. So I look at the business side of it. And lovely to be connected with everybody on this call.
Absolutely. Thanks again for being here. Shrikant, you have been on this platform before, but I think it would still help if you could share a little bit about what has evolved in the last couple of years since we last met.
Yeah, thanks, Arjun. I'm currently working with Axis Bank, and what has changed over last 2 years is largely over the last 10, 15 years, ever since I had joined Fractal Analytics in 2014, I was into the roles where enabling businesses with data-driven decisions. That was my objective. Only 1 year ago in Axis Bank, I had made an internal role change to lead the retail liability portfolio, which where Axis has like 3.5 crore customers and uh, some 3 lakh odd crore balances. So using various strategies and initiatives across the organization, how can we grow that portfolio? So that is my KRA as we speak, and that is also very intense on the data part, because you can imagine a very large portfolio to understand it, various opportunities. Data is a key input into the decisions that we make over here.
Got it. No, thanks for sharing that, both of you. So let's get started. People are sparing their precious times to be here with us, and just FYI, we will be circulating this amongst our 70,000 plus community members as well. Um, So the let's start with the elephant in the room. 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, people were having a very different conversation when it came to data science and analytics, right? It was a lot of focus on, okay, how are people building data science models? How should we decide whether to choose between data engineering versus data analytics versus data science? And that conversation, I think today seems a bit of very rudimentary and passive conversation. I think it has evolved significantly over the last 1 or 2 years, wherein the type of talent that companies are looking for in this particular domain um, is hitting a new high almost every week or every month, right? So what I want to start off with is just very high level picture from both of you. What are the biggest trends shaping companies' talent requirement when it comes to data and AI/ML professionals? I know it's a deliberately slightly broad question because we are going to get to granular points, but first let's understand the biggest factors that are causing the new sort of changes in this particular environment. So we'll start with Anupriya. If you could perhaps give us your key thoughts on main factors driving changes in the talent requirements for data AI/ML roles.
Yeah, I think Arjun, you have summarized it quite well. In the recent times, we have seen a drastic shift in companies looking for not model builders anymore, rather system thinkers. So, when I talk about system thinkers, they do not care anymore about how you're building the solution. They care more about the impact that you're driving. So, one of the common parlance that we also see in the hiring circuits when it comes to data or AI/ML roles is that they don't focus much on your resume. They focus on what they're calling your impact portfolio, as in like what were using data, what were the business decisions that you was able to drive. So now in today's day and time, it just doesn't end with you building a model that can predict something. The senior executives require at tier one companies require you to be able to synthesize that data and give data backed action steps. And because from their perspective, also they feel that given where like even the open source models are today, data synthesis is not going to be a challenge in the future. It is just going to matter, and the differentiating factor is going to be how each one of us interprets that data, reads that data, and more than that, leverages that data. I think that becomes an important aspect. And that also takes me back to a very important point that I have recently, somebody put it and it made so much of sense, is that soft skills are the new hard skills. So in that perspective, all the technicalities like knowing how to use Power BI or Python and all, if not already in few years, if not months, it will become redundant. So those hard skills might not have the same kind of say pull when it comes to your resume or making you as a lucrative candidate for these type of roles. Rather, it is going to be the impact you drove. So the system is going to be more tools agnostic. Rather, it will move more towards, say, the result orientation that you saw and you drove.
I think that's very well articulated, especially to summarize kind of the key trends that are taking shape right now. Definitely, I think the conversations are changing from tools to impact, as you're talking about, from models to outcomes. Um, at the same time, what we are seeing is there's a lot of flux in terms of the tools that are actually out there too, right? So while business decisions and hiring decisions might be looking at outcomes, candidates have to be aware of what kind of new developments are happening from a tool and model building space, and it can be quite a bit of a mind spinner, right? Because there's just a lot of new things that are coming across every day. I mean, Shrikant, what I would love to understand from you is, I mean, feel free to share your broad perspective, but also if you could help us understand, like, perhaps if you have been able to be in the trenches, I'm not sure at your level if you are doing that right now, but have you seen a specific trend in how data AIML professionals are kind of dealing with this like significant wave of new tools that are being bombarded to this in this space today? Like, how are people making decisions of utilizing the right tools for their business use case. I think I would love to understand that at a high level, and then we'll, I'm sure, deep dive into it very soon.
Yeah, sure, Arjun. Arjun, I want to break this entire thing into uh, three or four components so that all of us are on the same page, and also talk like how the things are shifting, because I'm seeing all this happening in front of me. So if we look at any analytical, whether it's a analytical problem statement or product, there are three parts to it. The first part is around problem definition. What is the problem that we are solving? The second part is how to solve that, which means what tools we are using, what kind of models or methodologies we are using. And the last part is around presenting the insights or the story from the problem that we have defined and the tools that we have used. So these are the three parts which remain the same over the last 10 years. They don't change. Now, what is changing? Let me specify over here. On the first part, which is defining the problem statement. So, defining the problem statement is becoming more and more crucial because the skill around curiosity is the topmost skill in today's world. The more curious we are, we can define the problem statement much better. We can leverage all the external world information, uh, AI tools, Copilot, etc., to define our problem statement much more sharper and faster. The second element is once the problem statement is defined, then we go around thinking what are the tools, technologies, methodologies that we need to use. Now, traditionally in analytics over the last, before the advent of uh, the AI models and the foundational models, Python has been the go-to language, and the models like logistics, regression, random forest, they have been the go-to models to create. Now, what has changed in the last 3 years is the availability of the different capabilities to speeden up the entire model building, and people who even don't know statistics, who have never studied the basics of statistics, they can simply use the backend system of generative AI and Copilot to write the entire code by giving the right prompts. Now, giving those right prompts is is something which, of course, a person how good they are at their coding skills, how good they are in terms of logic, they can write them best, and without knowing the syntax of a particular language, they can generate the required code and then, of course, iterate and create the outputs. So two things in this middle is changing. One is even if someone doesn't have a tech, very strong tech know-how or a very strong statistical know-how, still they can develop these models. However, to validate the output of those models and see whether they are making sense, whether the Gini is making sense or the R square is making sense, for that, of course, they will need that guidance and the learning. But at least the learning can be much more faster. You don't have to go into the last level of statistical learning. So in terms of tools, at least in my areas where we are working, what change we have brought in is our analysts have access to the same tools which were always there. The additional access that we have provided to everyone is uh, there is a code copilot which is there in the company where we have options to use multiple ones, whether it is from OpenAI or from Microsoft or from open source. So those options are there to use them and speeden up, or we call it time to market. So a model which used to take if 3 months in building, we should be able to build it in a month's time or less than that, right? Now the last element is the insight generation, storytelling, and engaging with the business to drive the output, and then integrating in the front end systems. So that is the last part, and that also that remains. Of course, the output of that can be fast tracked. That's okay, but that remains. So this the all the three skills, they are needed. The only thing is the level of the skill is changing.
Hmm.
So It is more about understanding the output which is being generated. Is it making sense? How is
Right.
it going to fill in the story? But to create that output, even with less knowledge of statistics or less technical knowledge, it can be created.
Understood. No, thanks for breaking it down in a very structured manner, and I think also very digestible manner to somebody like me who's not part of the quote unquote data domain. Um, so it sounds like there's a common overlap between the articulation from you and Anupriya, which is that you highlighted this right off the bat, Shrikant and Anupriya. I think the first thing you both highlighted is we need people who are system thinkers. We need people who can frame the problem statement in a very sophisticated, business oriented kind of a manner, which may not have always been the requirement earlier. So it seems like that is definitely picking up as a major trend when it comes to hiring decisions. You don't want just people who will execute without critical thinking. You're looking at skills which will validate that this person can go to the heart of the problem and really frame it in a impactful manner. So I think that's a common part. And I would just highlight and reiterate, Shrikant, the fact that you're saying that the tools are the ones which are changing rapidly and companies are reevaluating what kind of frameworks, methodologies, etc. they should be picking up. But I mean, just a follow-up question: has the dust settled there, or is it like still pretty early stages to kind of say that okay, these are the tools that we should be using because most of the other industry competitors are using that, or this is the by far best in class model, or is it all like very rapidly evolving right now? And Anupriya, I would love your thoughts after Shrikant as well on this.
Arjun, from a tools perspective, see the core tools on the analytics side, they remain like Python remains the go-to tool. Now,
Yeah,
within Python, to speeden up the work, we are integrating all the OpenAI as well as the other open source models which are there, so that people have multiple options. Even like Anthropic should be available. So
yeah,
those things are being enabled so that people can use the multiple options. But we have to just differentiate that analytics is different from the coding of the products, which typically the IT companies have been doing, or maybe a product company like a Zomato would do, because they are going to use more of those cloud, the Anthropic Cloud A tools which are there,
sure.
and fast track that entire work. But from an analytics standpoint, I always see the usage of the Copilot within our cloud systems which are there.
Got it. So it's kind of done within the context of
Yeah.
the larger business problem, which is data analytics. But I get the point. All right, Anupriya, any thoughts on this from your perspective?
Yeah, I completely concur with Shrikant here is that the loyalty that we have seen towards Python, I don't see it going away anytime soon. And in recent times, what we have seen entities do is build a layer on top of that that allows non-coders and non-Python users to sort of have the same insights into data, which earlier only somebody who was very fluent with Python could do. So I think that is something that has changed drastically, where accessibility to data, I would say, has increased significantly. So at this point in time, if I talk about Zomato, even our city team can say create a beautiful data dashboard at their city level with all the necessary insights and take business decisions. Now they are not relying heavily on, say, the data team to prepare that dashboard for them and give them that insight. So that digestible data inputs automatically comes to them at their fingertips. So I think that has been the big game changer. And coming back to your other question, Arjun, about the dust settling, I don't think so that the dust has settled or it will settle anytime soon. It's just that there is so much happening, and it is overwhelming at times, especially for people who are trying to find a job in this sector or something. But for big organizations like Zomato, there are two things that need to be considered in that. Today there might be a tool that might be all the conversations might be around it, but tomorrow some better tool might come in. but at the same time, for a big organization, it is not practical to keep switching tools every day. So the loyalty to what had worked in the past and what is reliable, and also the important conversation is around data privacy. So what ensures that the data privacy aspect is also managed? I think loyalty to that still remains there. In terms of the layer that goes on top, I think whichever is most convenient, whichever is most user friendly, I think they will come and go. And in the end, one that do not requires heavy prompt engineering, that do not requires heavy technical understanding, I feel will see the maximum adaptability
Hmm.
across big organizations. So I
Hmm.
think that is going to be the trend that at least I see coming across. And again, I feel that who will be on top of this trend here are people who have a steep learning curve. So you need to take that time out to understand what the trends are, to understand what is working, what is not working, with practical nuances to it. If something new comes out, don't let that overwhelm you. Just figure it out. Take a step back and think whether it is the applicability of it is going to impact your line of business or not. If it is not, then just move on. It is one of those fads that will come and go and might not stick around.
Hmm. Very interesting. Um, the one thing that I have also been hearing a lot about in terms of overall trends in AIML is, and I think you've sort of alluded to it, especially when it comes to evaluating talent, is how best you can showcase outcomes before you showcase like what tools you're adept uh, at, or what kind of models you might be familiar with. So knowledge is becoming more of a commodity, and outcomes are becoming the differentiator between candidates. That's kind of where we have been seeing things moving. But I want to get your take on that, which is at companies like Axis and Zomato and other tier one companies out there. Um, what are the biggest differentiators when it comes to evaluating talent, evaluating candidates for hiring? And we are talking about mid-career professionals because that's the community we focus on. So people generally anywhere, I would say 5+ years experience to about like 15-ish years experience. We do have, I would say, a sizable community of people with more than 15 plus, but 5 to 15 is our sort of more of a sweet spot. So I just wanted to understand, Shrikant, we can start with you on this one. Uh, what would you say are the biggest differentiators you are seeing in terms of identifying the top talent versus, let's say, the not so top talent?
Understood, Arjun. So, Arjun, uh, yeah. So there are typically three kinds of roles which make a strong analytics team. The first is a business analytics professional. They are the ones typically who look into defining the problem statement, working with our businesses, very going deep into the business, defining the problem statement, and then owning it end to end in terms of getting it implemented, in terms of decision making or in terms of integrating with the front end apps or the tech systems. So that is the first kind of role. The second kind of role is a data science lead, the person who looks into what kind of model needs to be developed depending on the problem statement and how it needs to be validated and how it needs to be integrated. And the third very important skill, which we have not talked much so far in our call, is the data engineering. And data engineering leaders, in my understanding today, they are commanding higher premium than data science leaders. And that is because no matter how fancy tools can come or whatever can come, but the data is the backbone of whatever we do. And that is messy. Just give me a second.
Sure. Maybe till then, Anupriya, we can get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with Shrikant in the way he has put it. I think how entities are also looking at it is, I would say, an amalgamation of what they look for in a consultant plus somebody with a very strong technical know-how. So it won't surprise me if for mid-career hiring, and especially in companies like Zomato, if they are witnessing a technical round followed by a sort of a business fit round, which they are calling nowadays. So by business fit round, it might be a consultancy case study kind of a round where they might not test your technical understanding. Rather, they will test your analytical skills, your business skills, your ability to synthesize data on spot. So I think that has become a differentiating factor in recent times, because that synthesis that with the human brings in with, say, the historical data or the historical understanding that you might have, or the tribal knowledge that you might bring in, is what might determine or what might distinguish you from, say, the other candidates in the pool.
Yeah, sorry,
Understood.
Arjun, I was
Yeah,
just continuing. I'm sorry, the phone battery was
no
bad.
worries, no worries. I think you were completing a thought there, Shrikant, the third point
Yeah,
that you were talking
yeah. The
about. You have.
third point was around this data engineering. So, if typically how a analytics organization is set up is you have an analytics head, then you have a data science head. Within the analytics, a data science lead, a business analytics lead, and a data engineering lead. Now, data engineering is the backbone of everything. And over the last 2, 3 years, ever since AI is taking up more and more, uh, it's been more in the news. Data engineering is becoming really core to the organizations in structuring it properly in all forms of features, store, star schema. So a lot of focus is going on there so that the rest of the teams, they can unlock the potential from this all the AI tools. Because if our data is messy, if it is not readable, if it is not right, it is not correct, then all this will also throw out wrong outputs only. So yeah, these are the three key skills. And in terms of the differentiators that we look at, I think as Anupriya was rightly saying, business analytics focus more on case study interviews, how you've solved business problems, and then how you created the impact. Data science, we go into the depth of the the data science models, the different techniques applied in different kind of situations, and also how the generative AI and agentic AI skills are being used within the data science parlance to fast track the work and bring in more efficiencies and time to market. So typically a model building earlier used to take 3 to 6 months. Now with this can be shorten it to 1 to 2 months. So that is where a lot of focus goes into, and of course improving the accuracy and robustness of the same thing. And on the data engineering side is the key to make it really uh, structured in a manner so that the rest of the teams can unlock the value of AI.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Shrikant has put, and so beautifully structured also. In recent times, we have seen more people trying to transition from data science roles to data engineering roles, because those pieces are where you sort of become like the human in the loop when it comes to the entire AI wave that is there, and build something on top of that. So you need to be on top of the trends that are happening. You need to build solutions that are scalable for the entire organization at all levels that are there. Thirdly, you need to sort of also be on top of what the North Star for different businesses are, and how do you drive data backed solutions towards that North Star. So, and Shrikant, I think, rightly pointed out that these roles are the ones that command a premium in today's market, and rightly so, given that the wide array of skill sets that these roles command.
Yeah, no, I think that's very helpful that you're highlighting that, because it's clearly, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because again, not an industry professional like you both, but I feel like that's a shift, right? Earlier, when we used to think about the sort of the uh, pecking order, it used to be like the data scientist used to sit at the top, then the analytics person, and then the engineer at the bottom. Now, both of you are saying that tables have turned a little bit, and like the engineers commanding the highest premium in the current AI driven market. And that's probably because of the, the efficacy of the models depends on the quality of the data and how well it's structured and put together. So I mean, that kind of a transition that you're talking about is very different from what we used to experience when people came to us and said, hey, I'm in engineering, please get me to data science and or analytics even. Now you're saying it's kind of a reverse it's the same thing, people going from India to US, now they're coming back from US to India. So it's kind of like that in some ways. Would you agree that that trend is starting to reverse a little bit, at least momentarily?
Yeah, Arjun. Earlier, when just 4 or 5 years ago, till the time I was in even in Mahindra and City, I used to read articles saying data science is the sexiest job of 21st century, and but we see the tables turn. Even uh, in Axis Bank, I've seen when vendors come to us, the companies which pitch talent to us, their monthly rates are higher for a data engineer versus a data scientist uh, versus a business analytics.
Wow,
So,
very interesting. Very interesting. I do have a sort of a follow-up for both of you. So you both talked about like the way hiring process is now focusing on not just the technical know-how, but also applying that to the business use cases, driving outcomes, so more business analytics oriented. So you're talking about like case study interviews and all that, but to be honest, I think the biggest problem that even top tier job seekers, meaning people with amazing backgrounds, are facing is not converting the interview into an offer, but it's to land interviews, right? Because how crowded the job market is, it's just become even harder over the last 1 or 2 years to land interviews, right? I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but by and large, this is what we are seeing as a major trend. So keeping the same logic in mind that you both highlighted of showcasing business oriented skill set as opposed to just technical know-how, how can somebody do that before they get the interview? How can they do that in their application in any form of fashion? You could say like something in the resume, maybe something outside of the resume. What should people be doing to a firstly build that skill, and b showcasing it to land more interviews? Either of you can go first. If you need a second to think about it, please feel free.
So I think now again with the advent of AI, we are seeing something which people are calling a double gatekeeper when it comes to your resume screening. First, in all large organizations, you have the AI layer of screening of your resume, then followed by a human that they'll screen your resume. In first layer of screening, I think again, obviously there are going to be a certain list of skill sets and markers that they would have established sorry which they will check again. So in recent times what we have witnessed is that impact portfolios sorry impact portfolios are what I'm sorry
No worries. You might want to get some water. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, sorry, there's some flu going around, which a lot of us have a bad throat. Uh, but yeah, so I don't see the traditional format of resumes seeing the same kind of success which, say, these impact portfolios are seeing these days. And how are these impact portfolios different from resumes? So some people like they will highlight obviously the impact they drove at different organizations using the tools that they leveraged, instead of it being the other way around, like, okay, I know I know these tools, I can use this software, so on and so forth. And apart from that, some at any point in time, if your resume or your application stands out, that definitely sort of gives you the edge. We have seen cases where, say, people have gone to the extent in building coming up, like for big organizations, it's publicly known what their key problem areas are. So people picking up one of these problem areas and just like devising a solution for that. And like Shrikant also highlighted, something like that would have taken months earlier. Now it just takes you few days, if not hours. So building that also gives you first an advantage. It sets your application apart from the others. Second, it also in a way prepares your thinking for the case study round that comes later.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Shrikant, any thoughts on the same question that I had asked with regard to um,
yeah,
how
Arjun.
to prepare better?
Of course. So the question was how to land up an interview. I think that is the
Yeah,
question that.
especially with regard to showcasing the business orientation that you were both highlighting.
Yeah. See, it's very important to have that orientation, whether you are a data engineering, whether you are trying for a data engineering profile, or whether you are trying for a data science profile, or for any of the product or the business analytics side. To give you examples, on the data science side, someone may write in the resume that I created 3 logistic regression models. That could be one way of writing. The other way of writing could be I built a logistic regression model for this kind of problem statement, which led to this improvement in the risk parameters for the bank, or this much improvement in the disbursements of the assets. So it's just a way of framing the same thing, and then automatically once the business orientation starts reflecting in the writing, it will get caught either if a human being is reading the resume, or even if the AI is reading the resume, it will be able to catch it that this person has the data science plus the business orientation. Similarly, on the data engineering side, when you're talking about pipelines, building the data pipelines, what kind of impact those pipelines led to when they were built? Did they reduce the the time for the data science team to build the models, or did it improve the number of insights which can be generated? So what did it lead to? That is an important point to be highlighted in the resume. Whatever work we have done, so there is a framework, I call it situation, action, result. It's like SAR format in the resume. What was the situation? What was the action taken? And what was the result or the outcome? It is applicable across profiles. So that is something which can be shown in the resume. The other part is, of course, uh, how to land up an interview is, I consider, for people, the cohort that you talked about, 5 to 15 years experience, networking is the most critical thing needed in today's world. Reaching out to people, it is easy to reach out, and using platforms like what you are doing, right? So leveraging everything possible which is available, using LinkedIn, reach out to people, pitch. It's like we are ourselves as a professional, right? We are ourselves a product. Now, how do we market ourselves?
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
thing.
And
Yeah, no, very well said. Anupriya, you want to add something?
yeah, I think what Shrikant was talking about in terms of, say, structuring your resume in a fashion where it communicates the business impact. This might be slightly controversial, but I would say suggest to all our listeners that um, don't use an AI tool pack to do that. Do it yourself. Sit and do it, so that over time your thinking also starts working in that way, because that is what is going to be your valuable asset when it comes to later stages. When you are sort of even in your interview round, if there is a question that comes at you, think of it first from the framework that Shrikant very beautifully put forward, SAR framework, so that you are giving them an end-to-end solution and not just middle part of the data pipeline, or the how the data structuring is going to look like. And that will organically come to a person if you shift your thinking in that aspect, and that won't happen if you are relying heavily on these tools to do that for you. So when you're preparing for these kind of conversations, when you're preparing for these kind of applications, let your brain do the processing. And you can obviously use the AI tool for the last layer of validation, or for last layer of, say, feedback for your resume.
When you mentioned that it is a controversial thing, I didn't know what you were going to say. I thought it was going to cause our entire video to go viral, hopefully. But I think what you said was so important, and I really do hope that more and more people, hear this specific guidance or stance, whatever you call it, because we are seeing a lot of people using AI to prepare, and it's absolutely okay to prepare your job application interviews, but to outsource it to AI, where you stop your own critical thinking and you're just sort of really heavily leaning on AI. it's kind of like a slippery slope that ends up in you not winning the game, right? But it's sort of like a short term gain but long term pain sort of a situation, and many people are not realizing it. So I'm very happy that you called that out as an AI professional, Anupriya. So no, kudos to that. And I do want to also focus on aspects around common mistakes that you both are seeing people make. I mean, AIML perhaps leaning too much on it could be one of them. I'm not sure if you have actually seen that, but I would love to understand. Uh, you might be seeing people who are generally quite qualified, but not really doing the best possible in their career, especially in AIML or data. There's just so much competition. What are the common pitfalls that professionals, mid-career professionals in the field are currently making because they're sort of perhaps in the rat race and doing what everybody is telling them to do, but it's not really differentiating them. It's not adding value to their career growth or their their own development. Shrikant, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay, Arjun. I'll talk about two things over here. The first is, as we are in this year's experience bracket of 5 to 15, as you mentioned, and I've myself been there. The one thing which happens is we lose our way. Uh, like we don't know what to do. What do we want to? What is our purpose? What do we want to achieve in our careers, in our lives? This is the time to reflect. What is our overall purpose, and make it more holistic. There are a lot of good content available. So read some books out of outside of the technical data science or AI, ML, statistics, whatever
Mhm.
we do. It's important to read outside of that. There are very powerful authors in the world. I can share some examples as well. Amazing books. The book Range by David Epstein. It helped me really define my own uh, goals and purpose. I never had an answer to a question. If you ask me even today, I still don't have a. Now I have a much better answer. Like if you were to ask me, where do you see yourself 5 years down the line? Earlier, I did not have a very strong answer to it, but after investing time in building the purpose, I have a fairly reasonable answer, which I will repeat every time you ask the question.
Yeah.
So defining the purpose, which probably this experience bracket people should be doing, is extremely important. The second pitfall I see is not staying abreast with the trends, what are happening, or getting external perspective. Like maybe thinking that whatever my solution is the best. So, getting external perspective around whatever we are building, and then staying, if not ahead, but at least staying with the trends as they are shaping. Keep on reading what's coming new, anticipate, read about the business in which you're driving analytics. So, if you are driving analytics in an e-commerce company, read about e-commerce business. If you're driving in a bank, then understand banking so that we we are able to become a thought leader and identify problem statements ahead of the business stakeholders identifying the problem statements for us. So I think these are a couple of things which I would advise, or which are the pitfalls. That one is the lack of purpose, and the second is maybe not staying completely ahead of the trends, both in business and in data science. So these are the two takeaways from here.
Hmm. Understood. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that was very well said. I don't think I have any follow up on that, but Anupriya, over to you.
Yeah, I think Shrikant has very well put the two common pitfalls that we see people around us suffering from. I think apart from that, and also sort of it overlaps a bit with Shrikant's point, is that don't be tool obsessed, be business obsessed. Like Shrikant said, that if you are, say, in e-commerce sector, then be obsessed about it, read about it, partake in conversations that are happening around it, read about it, and even just like go and set up some time with people within your business itself, if not in your company, outside of that. Reach out to people on LinkedIn, go to mixers that are there, and the perspective that will come from there is going to be fantastic and also will broaden your horizon. I think a second pitfall which people should sort of think about right now is that they should be skeptical of data. Today, given that there is an array of data processing that is happening over like wide range of tools, be skeptical of the data that comes across to you. If you are in an interview, if they send you if they give you something to work on, just ask what data biases you should index for, because it also communicates to the interviewer that you come with that kind of a nuanced understanding, that in today's day and age, this is a very important skill set to have. Because when you are experimenting with so many new models, when you're experimenting with so many new tool packs, you do not yet know the benchmarking or the efficiency of these different systems. So that is where your expertise gives you the edge, which other people might not have, for the specific age, for the specific experience bracket that we are talking about in the 5 to 15 years of work experience.
Yeah, this was very well said. Be skeptical of data, and I totally agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, the times at which we come across data that makes no sense, and then we go back and try to make sense of it, and then we realize where the system broke. And then at that point in time, for us also, it's a light bulb moment that would have loved to have somebody on the team who was very pessimistic to begin with. You don't usually hear this, but I think that's a perspective and a nuance that is being valued a lot these days.
Just a quick question. I mean, this is probably not really related to the kind of conversation that our audience might be expecting, but just out of curiosity, when you come across this particular problem, being skeptical of data, meaning there's a lot of issues perhaps with the quality of the data, aren't there tools today to help with identifying those issues as opposed to just having humans in the loop? Like, in the sense, like, don't you have both talent as well as tools working towards identifying such issues, or is it primarily dependent on talent to identify such issues?
I think the problem right now is an amalgamation of both. I think with tools also, if you're moving on to newer tools, like for example, if like I gave a city CEO for us has built a data dashboard, and if something on the back end broke, these people, these cohort of people are not the ones who did work on Python or to understand how and where this data is being extracted, will not be able to understand why there is, say, some hallucination that might be happening. They might treat it as the ground reality, whereas somebody with that kind of skepticism might be able to sort of tap into that better.
Understood. Got it. I think just to go back to Shrikant's earlier point with regard to having clarity of your purpose, I think that I just want to double tap on, because there are a ton of people, not just in data AML, but people within that range of 5 to 15 years experience who are being impacted disproportionately because they spent a decade or more learning very deep seated practices of how to do something, and because the world is sort of unraveling around us in terms of new ways of learning skills, and not just learning skills but learning how to learn. Like for example, earlier it was much more theoretical, course oriented. Now it's a lot of practical model building and portfolio building kind of a thing. So I think it becomes very overwhelming, and a lot of people, they just end up following the trends, following the herd, so to speak. And I think, Shrikant, thank you for calling that out, because I know a lot of people who don't think like that, but they need to hear that, right? So they need to hear that it's okay to take a pause and really reevaluate if the way things are progressing in your field, you want to continue or you want to perhaps switch to something else. And sometimes it could be a move, like you said, within data, but from one data role to another data role. It's not always like you leave data completely behind and do something new altogether. But yeah, I mean that's what a pivot is, and that's what we want to make sure people are able to align themselves really well with the new evolving factors around them. So I just wanted to highlight that part because I think it's very important, and I'm glad that you pointed that out. But apart from that, I think there's a lot of commonalities in what you're sharing about the what candidates should be looking for in terms of avoiding pitfalls. I do want to highlight to our audience that if you do have any questions, I think some of these questions that I'm asking are from you only. But if there are any other questions that I haven't asked yet and you want to ask Shrikant and Anupriya, please do share it with us in chat. And feel free to ask any questions. There are no bad questions. This is the right time to get their feedback. But the in the meantime, I will have one more thing to cover here, which is again something we have been getting a lot from our our user community, is that right now there seems to be sort of this top talent kind of which everybody is really going after because they have the best pedigree or the best experience, or the best kind of skills that really align with what companies are looking for. And then there's a sort of that what we call the fatty middle, which is like you have a lot of people in the middle which are not considered top talent, quote unquote, because maybe they don't have the best pedigree or best kind of experience. Now it becomes harder to compete in this fatty middle kind of a demographic. So what in this one, we get a lot of questions around like, okay, I am targeting the top tier companies. I'm targeting let's say there's a new acronym called Mango. It's always changing like every couple of years. Now it's Mango. It's the you have your Meta and Apple and Nvidia and some of the other Google and OpenAI and all. So I mean I would categorize Zomato and Access are top tier in their own industries for sure, industry leaders. What I mean, do you actually agree that there is certain level of talent below which companies like yours would not even look at the candidate? Is that true? And actually, I do remember, I don't know if it was Zomato's founder or some other founder, he publicly said, we don't look for candidates who are looking for a job. We are just looking for candidates who are not looking for a job and they're happy in their careers because they're so successful. So is that there as a perception that there is a tier one talent and we won't even look at tier two? Is that happening?
So I think I'll just share my experience here. I absolutely love where the job market is today compared to where it was when I started my career. And banks in India would look for like specific kind of pedigree. Cracking into these top banks were very difficult back in the day. But today, I think that entire game has shifted completely. I am somebody who did economic honors, didn't do an MBA. I don't have any degree, technical degree in AI, ML, or data science. Basic econometrics and statistics I learned when I was in university. But I picked up skills over time because, like Shrikant mentioned, it's all about passion. I was very inquisitive about this space. I was inquisitive about what is happening, and I just found that I enjoy reading up about it. I enjoy liking it. So for me, that transition happened organically. But within Zomato itself, we have bunch of top leaders who I would say do not come from that same kind of pedigree, do not come from, say, your IITs, or your SRCCs, LSR, Stephens, and all your top colleges. But these are people who have made it within the organization just on the sheer talent. We have somebody who is leading our entire logistic vertical, that is like a pool of 4 lakh delivery partners, and he has been with us for 7 years, and he has worked his way up from being a city manager to now leading the entire cohort of our delivery fleet. Again, on the same thing, based on sheer talent and the values that he brings to the table. And I think coincidentally, Arjun, what you pointed out happened with me also at Zomato when I was not looking for a role at that point in time. I would say I was at a CXO role in my previous entity. I was quite comfortable. but it just happened organically, that they were looking for somebody for this kind of work, and then the opportunity came my way, and I realized that I had become too comfortable in my previous role. So this was something that was pushing me out of that comfort zone. So for me, it was an easy decision to make at that point in time. But I would say that don't let the tag of your college or university or MBA sort of hold you back. Just have confidence in your knowledge, have confidence in your skills, and also what Shrikant said, you are the product. Just sell yourself. It doesn't matter where the product was, where it was trained, how it was, and all of that. It is what you have ended up building yourself to over the years of experience that you have. And honestly, I don't buy into this entire notion that after, say, 5 years or 7 years of career, you are still defined by where or which university you went to, or which was the first company you worked with. um,
Right.
a lot of things change. The skill sets that you pick up on job, no university or no sort of a course or diploma can sort of teach you that.
Right. No, thank you. And thank you for answering it so passionately, because I think more than the answer itself, I feel like you believe it, and you've believed it because you probably experienced it in your own career, right? When you have lived through it, I think you feel more passionately about it. So we need more examples like that. Shrikant, what are your thoughts on this? And by the way, by pedigree, I didn't just mean the university. It's like a what we hear, these sort of rumors that, okay, this company is only looking at these other companies to hire from.
No, and
So
that is true as well. In a lot of job listings, you will see that it mentions that, okay, you need to be from only these three IITs, or you need to have MBA from only these 4 or 5 MBA schools. But I would say that don't let that hold you back. I mean, it is, I think, just a common, I would say, it's something controversial, Arjun, that might go viral. It's just a common format which a lot of these companies sadly are following in terms of the kind of candidates they're looking for. And I think for an organization, I can speak on behalf of my organization, we do not follow that format. You won't see any of our job descriptions carrying like, okay, you need to have such and such degrees, or you need to be from such and such school or organizations, or have worked at MBB before, or anything like that.
right, got it. Shrikant, would love to have your take on this.
Yeah, Arjun. Uh, Arjun, I want to quote a little bit of personal observations, what I had in my early part of the career. I was in the US when I was working for my first job with TCS, and I saw some of the people in my own company who came, or on the client side, people who had driven taxis or done some other kind of work for the large part of their initial careers. Like, I met a taxi driver who started into software engineering at the age of 40. Now, that person doesn't have any pedigree of a Stanford or a MIT or a Harvard, and still he or she was making decent in that particular organization. I have some examples even in my current organization where people have come from a sales background who never did any coding, but they got a chance to work in the organization, start at a particular level, and learned the art of data analytics, learned the tools, and then because of their business knowledge in the previous companies, they are able to do a much more better job at the things. So while pedigree is great and it gives the initial head start to someone, but what we have on this group is 5 to 15 years experienced people. So they are already working somewhere. Even I am not working in a MBB or in a Google, Meta, or those kind of companies, Microsoft, and I never even feel like that I have to work in those companies. There are enough great companies. It's the world is not made up of only 10 companies. All
Absolutely.
Many companies are superb where we are currently working, and I'm sure at least 50-60% of the people on this group would be working in some form of top 500 companies of India. So there is no need to feel like that. If someone has a specific aspiration to move in a particular industry or in a particular company, there are ways. and it can happen. I can talk about my own story. I was working for Mahindra and Mahindra till like 2021. From 2016, it was automotive, and Anupriya, you may be able to agree in uh, in analytics world, there are certain industries which are considered ahead of the curve. So all the e-commerce companies or consumer companies or credit cards, they are ahead of the curve. While industries like automotive, back then it was behind the curve. They were laggards. Now, of course, all self-driving and all is happening on that side as well, and EVs. So they have caught up. But earlier it was a laggard industry. So I had spent some 6 years there, and I was wanting to see if I can improve my own analytical sophistication. And I was keen to get into some of these consumer companies, especially banking. Nobody used to look at my resume. They would say, "Oh, you don't have banking experience. You can't get a chance in especially Indian companies." But I kept on trying, and I got a chance to interview with City. And then, as you rightly said, Arjun, it's about getting the chance. People are still able to convert. So that's how the case was with me. But it was a relentless effort to get the chance. And then when it happened, it was for credit card City for the US business. And that's how I got into financial services. So yeah, that's how it is. I can only like talk about my story, whatever I've observed, and motivate the
Yeah.
group. And I don't have any magic wand for
No, I think we have all three heavyweights in the room aligned on this topic. So I think we can concur and move on. I know we are past our time, but if it's okay with you all, there's one question that I would like to take up that's come from the audience very quickly, and I think it's an important one. It's from Tiffany. Tiffany, thanks for asking your question. So I think she's basically trying to just actually highlight that what we said earlier about results oriented CV being important but not necessarily enough today, because we are talking about networking at your targeted companies being essential, building more of a portfolio to showcase business orientation being essential. So she's asking, is it a necessity to do the networking, to do the portfolio building, or are there a lot of cases where a well crafted CV with business and results orientation could suffice as well to land people jobs? And that's, I think it's a nuanced question, but love to understand both of your takes quickly. Anupriya?
So I think it honestly depends on the industry. So e-commerce generally, or the new age companies that you see, work a lot on networking. So in these companies, having those conversations, reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn, getting their perspective on what the company is looking at, what they're not started, and sort of baking that into your application will definitely help. But when you talk about, say, traditional companies like your cities of the world, and other companies like that, I think there they heavily rely on the systems that are already in place, wherein you put in an application, and then your application will be screened, and then the process follows from there on. So I think for this, there is again no single solution. Just take a step back and see how the industry that you're trying to crack into operates, and that is going to be the distinguishing factor here.
Shrikant, we'll get your opinion on this quickly, and then we'll start wrapping things up.
Yeah, sure, Arjun. I'll just talk about from the same lens as I spoke earlier. We are ourselves a product, and we need to market ourselves. And anyone would say that omni-channel marketing is something we need to focus on. So it's not just one channel, but every other possibility which is there.
That was a very marketing oriented answer, but I liked it. I feel like you have an alter ego in marketing domain as well, Shrikant. Very well said and very well sold. So, anywho, I hope that was helpful to everybody who attended. Tiffany, again, thanks for asking the question. I think it was an important one. But special thanks to Anupriya and Shrikant. I think we had a very terrific conversation, and the reason for it was that you both were very honest, very candid, sometimes controversial as well. But you shared the things that hopefully will drive ground level impact for people who joined. It's not just something they will think about, but they will be able to take take away and implement. So I think actionable insights are always what we are looking for from these sessions, and you both did that marvelously. So thank you again for joining me, and uh, to the audience for making time for this as well. I hope you all have a great rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you, Shrikant.
Thank you, Arjun, for a great set of questions and a lovely evening. And nice to meet you, Anupriya.
Likewise, definitely we need to catch up.
Yeah. Okay. Bye bye.